Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Edge Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Lori Bedke, and before we dig into this week's topic, I want to say thank you so much for listening. So many of you are new to the show, and I am incredibly grateful that you're here. So whether you're brand new or an OG frequent flyer, if you love this show, I'd be so grateful if you would take a quick moment to leave a rating and review in the platform where you access Growth Edge each week. All right, now let's dig in. My name is Lori Bedke. I'm an educator, a speaker, an author, and an advisor. I am passionate about equipping and encouraging others to grow and thrive in their personal lives and professional careers. This podcast shares the habits and practices of peak performers and top leaders from many walks of life. Physicians, senior executives, entrepreneurs, and academics, and from every season, from the seasoned and sage to those emerging leaders and rising rock stars, all who are blazing trails and shining a light for others. So, for those of you who are familiar with the show, you know that most of the time I welcome guests to the show to pick their brains and sit at the feet of their wisdom and learned experience share. But every once in a while, I love to dig into topics and just take them on in a Leadership Essentials episode, and that's exactly what you're in for today. We are going to talk about a PhD in mistakes. So 2 weeks ago, on a plane ride home from speaking at a conference, I started typing notes for this very podcast episode. Fast forward last weekend, to my surprise and great sadness, I learned of the passing of Omaha business icon and billionaire philanthropist Walter Scott. A few years ago, I had the privilege of moderating a fireside chat with Mr. Scott. A childhood friend of fellow Omahan Warren Buffett, he trained as a civil engineer, spent several decades at the helm of Fortune 500 company Peter Kiewit & Sons, Inc., and served as a member of the board of Berkshire Hathaway, Valmont Industries, and several other philanthropic organizations. In his 90 years here on this earth, his accomplishments were many, but are easily exceeded by his charitable generosity. During that hour-long conversation, Walter was warm and witty and dropped pearl after pearl after pearl of wisdom. Each was enthusiastically consumed by me and the room full of business owners present that day. One lesson that he shared in managing talent that really sticks with me is the charge to leaders to be tolerant of employees who make mistakes. It means they're doing things, he explained. Just don't let them get a PhD in mistakes. A PhD in mistakes. Wow. So let's explore this a little bit. I think that you could agree with me that a short walk through business journalism will have you tripping over examples of mistakes and innovation and disruption being lauded. And for good reason. Fail fast, fail often. Move fast and break things. These are common mantras in Silicon Valley and beyond. And to Walter's point, they have merit. But they also have a darker underbelly, don't they? As with all things human behavior, accepting mistakes and recovering from failure is absolutely and always easier said than done. Why? Well, mistakes have consequences. Personal and professional competence is key to our credibility and trustworthiness in life and in leadership. And our egos and reputations are usually bruised when we stumble. That being said, mistakes are inevitable. To err is human, right? And to grow, to pursue new levels in our capacity, and to innovate, it often takes a few or a terrifying, humbling, frustrating, exhausting marathon number of attempts before we connect. What does that look like? Well, it might look like making a mistake, overlooking a key detail, missing a deadline, making an error in judgment, making a promise you can't keep, overestimating your capabilities, accidentally hitting reply all on a message that should have been a direct reply, producing a report with flawed data or projections, misunderstanding the objective or expectations on a task. It's completely normal to feel embarrassed, ashamed, disappointed, or worried when you make mistakes. So how do we do so gracefully and with a mindfulness toward growth? Here are a few suggestions. First, accept what happened and allow yourself to take in the resultant emotions, just not for too long. Next, when you have the perspective to be able to reflect, review, and examine what happened, do it. If it helps to engage the counsel of a trusted friend or colleague, a mentor, or a professional coach, absolutely do it. We will rarely have the objectivity to do this alone. Period. Full stop. Self-sufficiency is not on the table in this circumstance. It's tempting to want to ignore what happened or to pretend that it never happened. But what's done is done. The mistake has occurred. Wouldn't it be a shame if we didn't take the time and effort to extract a learning from it so that we're better informed and to avoid the same fate again? The smart leader pauses to reflect on his or her misstep, my friends. Here are a few questions to guide your post-gaffe debrief. What was the mistake? What actions led to that mistake? What were the consequences of the mistake? What could or should you have done instead? And how could this be prevented in the future? Maybe it wasn't your fault at all, but you won't know until you look at the situation from an unbiased perspective. Third, if needed, own up to the fail. This may be with your boss or another impacted party, or it may be simply to mentally complete your postmortem and close the door on that chapter. But with the clarity from your debrief, be clear, be factual, and be accountable. Take responsibility for your actions and the consequence, and then affirm your commitment to future growth and performance. Fourth, don't catastrophize, perseverate, or enter the doom loop of negative self-talk and negative self-belief. Every time we fail, we have the opportunity to see it as temporary or permanent, an identity that will carry forward with us, or a temporary circumstance that happened once, but we've taken steps to ensure won't or is highly unlikely to happen again. And finally, change and move on. And up. Assess and implement any behavioral or process modifications that will help your performance in the future be better informed and more effective. The mistakes you make aren't likely to ruin your career, but how you react to them definitely can. So my friends, our lessons are twofold. When we make mistakes, and we undoubtedly will, let's do so winningly with healthy doses of grace and growth. And when others around us or who are accountable to us do so, let's give them that same grace and let's guide them to the growth that will help them unlock the potential that lives within each failure, without collecting a doctorate in the subject along the way. Carry on, my friends. Thanks for listening to the Growth Edge Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with others. Have a great week.